I'm going to tell you that if you look at any of these passages and go to the original, there's no passage in the Jewish Bible that supports these Christian claims. The fulfillment citations found in Matthew, for example, there are 11 of those. There's nothing like it. I'd be glad to point it out, but Jews are very into education, knowing the original Hebrew. Just look it up. So I'm going to help you out. Let's take an example. Let's take Matthew's infancy narrative. This is going to shock you, but I'll do it. An angel comes to Joseph in a dream and tells him that Mary is not only pregnant, he should not divorce her. Joseph's instinct is, when he discovers that a woman he's betrothed to but never slept with, his instinct is she's been disloyal to him and he wants to divorce her, put her away. The angel tells, just read the text inside. The angel tells Joseph, don't put her away. What happens later on in the text in Matthew chapter 2 is that Herod the Great is seeking to destroy the child, to kill this child, because he's informed that the king of the Jews was born in Bethlehem. And to support these 2 points, Matthew quotes from 2 different passages. So in Matthew 1:23, we are told that the prophecy that the Messiah is to be born of a virgin is quoted in Isaiah 7:14. It just ain't there. Caution. If you're using an English Bible or a Malay Bible, you're not going to see it. Why? Because the translators changed the translation. Okay? So let's just put it here, okay? Translations are a human iteration. They're man-made. You could put anything you want to in the translation because there's only 61 people in the entire country of Malaysia that speak Hebrew. So you could write anything you want to. So I'm only interested in what Isaiah wrote. I'm not interested in what it says in hundreds of English Bibles. Isaiah says nothing like that. Hine ha'almahora v'yeled bain. Behold, the young woman is with a child. Doesn't say a virgin. The way you say virgin Hebrew is betula. It isn't there. Don't let people tell you otherwise. It just isn't there. And then it says, V'kara shemo Emmanuel, and she will call his name Emmanuel. Matthew changes it completely. The context of Isaiah 7:14 has nothing to do with a Messiah born 700 years later. It relates to a civil war between the northern kingdom of Israel, who had allied itself with Syria against the southern kingdom. Look, you want to know if I'm telling you the truth, right? And you love God, or else why are you watching this broadcast? Please, read Isaiah chapter 7, verse 1 through 13. Read the introductory passages once and just make sure I'm telling you the truth. That's all I can say to you, my friends. I pour my heart out to you, but I can't do more. The word isn't there. The context has nothing. The context has to do with a Syrio-Ephraimite war. That's what it's called. It was a war where, I can't go into it now, but 2 powers allied itself. The northern kingdom of Israel, because it was a divided kingdom, allied itself with Syria against Judah, the southern kingdom, which had allied itself with Assyria. Don't worry about it. You should worry about it. You should know it. But for right now, if you read those first 13 passages, you would see immediately what I'm saying to you is true. It has nothing to do with what's going to happen. Messiah born in 700 years. The word virgin isn't there. And don't let people bother you with Septuagint nonsense. I'm being straight with you. You're very vulnerable because you're using a translation. And you should always seek to rid yourself of these crutches and wheelchairs. People who are in crutches and wheelchairs only hope that one day they'll be well enough to walk again. Why aren't you, a God-fearing person, hoping also not to use a wheelchair and to be healed so you can read it in the original language? You should hope every day that the moment will arrive when you're done with translators. It's just a human iteration. That's all it is. That's why religious Jews all read from a Hebrew Bible. We all read Hebrew since we're children. And no Christian school teaches children Hebrew. None. Not one Christian school in Malaysia There are plenty of Christian schools in Malaysia for Christian children. None of them teach children Hebrew. None. Not one. Could you imagine? And there are very religious Christians in Malaysia. You know I'm telling the truth. You know I'm not making this up. So that's one example. And then we go further to Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 through 15. So there, the family is then told that they have to leave, that Herod is seeking to kill the child. In Matthew's infancy narrative, Jesus' home is in Bethlehem, and after the child is born, he cannot stay in Bethlehem, but has to go down to Egypt. And he's to stay there as long as Herod is alive, because Herod is seeking to kill the young child. So the family goes down to Egypt. This story is not in Luke, and not only is it not in Luke, the exact opposite story is in Luke. I'm not going into it now. But these two stories are utterly incompatible. I have a whole chapter on this in volume 1 of Let's Get Biblical. Matthew says in verse 15, this is not an arbitrary event. This is not an accident. No, it was foretold in your Old Testament that the Messiah had to go down to Egypt. And he says, because as it says, out of Egypt have I called my son. Could you imagine that? Matthew 2:15, we are told, quotes the Jewish Bible that says, out of Egypt have I called my son. As it turns out, that verse exists, and if you have a Christian Bible, there'll be a footnote, and it'll tell you, look it up in Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. I'm not kidding. It'll tell you that. You can look it up, believe me. If you look that up, but read the whole verse, because Matthew, for some reason I can't imagine, does not quote that entire verse. For some reason, for some mysterious reason, Matthew only quotes the end of the verse. Why doesn't he quote the whole verse of Hosea 11:1? Now, you could just turn your Bibles to Hosea 11:1. And what does it say there? It says, when Israel was a child, then I loved him, and out of Egypt have I called my son. That verse, does that verse talking about the Messiah? No. What did the author of Matthew do? Ripped it out of context completely. So, my friends, I'm just giving you examples here. Just 2 fulfillment citations right from the get-go. Just open the New Testament, bingo, you're there. So how could someone trust this? I mean, would you trust this kind of thing for a doctor, for a person who makes food? I mean, if someone play games like this with finances and payments, they would throw you in jail for this. This is, I hope I don't offend you, but this is the kind of behavior that's called fraud, which you'll wind up in prison for misquoting original documents and contracts. This is what is going on all over the New Testament, but Christians do not have the wherewithal because they're not even reading in context. You know, interesting. Matthew quotes Hosea in chapter 2, verse 15, and almost no Christian just says, let me just look this up. They don't, even in their English Bible. You know how much trouble, you know what a price you're going to pay for that? So yeah, that's what's going on. There's no prophecy about Jesus, the Son of God, being the Messiah anywhere in the Jewish Bible. But Christians are reading it in because they're just taught that from the pulpit and they're not researching it for themselves. There's your answer.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך